How excited are you for this Minnesota Vikings defense? It's finally got a really good defensive line, and that pass rush should be next level. But how are things going to look different from last year? We're going to talk all about that here tonight on the Real Forno Show. Plus, an update on Jordan Addison. It's done, right? Well, not quite. We'll have an update there and a lot more here in the latest episode of the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner, he's producer Dave. And, you know, I'm a little mad at you, Dave. You tried to screw with me by saying right before the show, hey, what's different? Like you're my wife asking if I noticed her haircut. Yeah, you know, just yeah, you already fucked with me once when you moved from the top right corner to the top left corner. And now you moved your mic from the right to the left. At least I got that you finally have your purple rug back there. Yes. So just outing you as an outright producer bully on the show here tonight, but
I'm still waiting on the shelves. Shelves will go in there and cut it with some brown, but I needed something because that pure white was driving me crazy.
Oh, I can only imagine. Are you going to do like the same? Because you had like a brick wallpaper or something in your apartment, right? Are you going to do something like that here too?
No, that's what the silver colored sound diffusion slats are behind that. But
okay,
I'm sort of wishing I'd gone with a darker color.
Hey, it is what it is. You can always take it. You can always take it and paint it. That's the nice part. That takes a little effort. It's a little annoying, but you can get away with it. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about the defense here today, but we got to start with Jordan Addison. Everybody knows last July, so almost just over a full calendar year since his arrest, when he was arrested for allegedly driving under the influence, and he was later charged with 2 counts of it, was supposed to go to trial earlier this week on Tuesday. That got postponed to a conference on Thursday, which was today, and they ended up accepting a plea deal. So the official charge is called wet reckless, which is, I believe, reckless driving with alcohol in your system. So it's a lesser charge than driving under the influence because, to my knowledge, wet reckless just requires any alcohol to be in your system and does not require you to meet a threshold like driving under the influence does, which in California state law is 0.08. So he is required to pay a minimal fine, which is, I believe, slightly over $300 and 12 months probation. Along with that, he can reduce his probation time by completing 2 online classes, which my guess would be that those classes are going to be alcohol and driving related. So in essence, Addison's legal issues are done. Hopefully he never has any ever again. But this is also when things finally get sped up with the National Football League. And we've talked about this a few times. They don't suspend until the legal process is done. So earlier, I believe it was Wednesday, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice ended up settling out of court with his charge when, if you remember last year, he was allegedly behind the wheel with a multi-car crash in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So that requires him to serve at least 30 days in jail over the course of the next 5 years, where he can choose to serve them however he wants, which is very interesting verbiage. And then he will also have to complete community service, which I think the total was 500 hours. which is about like 12 and a half full-time work weeks. So it's a lot of community service. And considering that they do a lot of community service with the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm guessing that will be relatively easy to accomplish. So when you talk about these legal instances, it's different. So one thing to keep in mind is it does not matter what the courts found. It does not matter what they settled on. The NFL will do it based on their own investigation. So if they found that player A was responsible for driving drunk behind the wheel, but they pled to a lesser charge, they will suspend based on driving drunk behind the wheel. They will not suspend based on the plea deal. So that in itself is important to know. The NFL acts independently from the legal system in regards to how they believe that the personal conduct policy was violated. So just because Addison pled to a lesser charge does not mean his suspension will be lessened. It also could be, depending on what they find in their investigation. We don't know. And the NFL released a comment saying that they have been investigating this. I don't have the exact verbiage, but it's that's paraphrased. So you have that. And then the likely suspension for him is 3 games. It's been 3 games since the incident happened. Why? They have set a precedent for those who have been charged with driving under the influence. It is a 3-game suspension. Now, it could be lessened because there is an instance where, hey, maybe he pled guilty to a lesser charge because the district attorney realized we don't have enough to commit on the charges that we have. And sometimes, like, you'll have a district attorney, they will decide, hey, I know they did something wrong, but I just need to make sure I get them with something. And then the NFL might see, okay, well, that's actually what it is, and they'll give a lesser charge. So much of this is hypotheticals. So in essence, he's going to be suspended between 1 and 3 games. Addison has the right to appeal. My guess is he will not appeal, and he will accept a suspension unless it's something ridiculous like 6 games. And then if it's 6 games, well then, hey, you appeal because there's no precedent that says you can suspend me for 6 games for this. So that is the next step. And it's going to be a frustrating one for the Vikings and fans for the sole fact that, hey, we want to know when Addison's going to be completely clear of this. We want to know when he's going to play and when he's not going to play. And I'm circling that week 3 game against the Cincinnati Bengals. If the Vikings don't have him against the Bengals, it's going to hurt. Now, it's going to hurt in week 1 against the Bears and week 2 against the Falcons, but it'll really hurt against the Bengals in week 3. Why? The Bengals have one of the best and most high-powered offenses in the National Football League with the trio of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Plus, Jefferson really wants to beat those guys. He won a national championship with Burrow and Chase. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out. I don't have a read on it other than I think it'll just be a 3-game suspension. And maybe if he chooses to appeal, they can knock off a game. But this is the next step. And it's the final step. And once he's done serving that suspension, it's over. And we can move on. And from a football standpoint, hopefully we never have to deal with it again.
Question: how long do you think it'll take the NFL to make up their mind?
So somebody asked me about this earlier today, and my guess is they could have something within 48 hours. Because the NFL hasn't just, this is done, now we can start investigating. They already know what's going on. They've already been investigating this. So from that perspective, it's probably just tying up the loose ends, figuring out, okay, here's the punishment. Well, did the punishment actually fit the crime? And then if the crime is the same as the punishment, well, then do we need to adjust what our suspension expectations are because it's not a full driving under the influence kind of case anymore? Or do they determine, hey, he was full driving under the influence and he's going to get that 3-game suspension, which is our precedent? There are a lot of questions and hypotheticals that I just don't know. And I think that's the important thing. me kind of just opining about what this could look like and what this might look like. I don't know. I wasn't there. I have not been super detailed reading court records and documents, but I can tell you this. He pled guilty to a lesser charge. And if the NFL deems that to be sufficient as far as what it was, he'll get a lesser suspension than 3. But he was initially charged with 2 counts of driving under the influence. And the precedent is 3 games. So
well, my
we'll
question
see what the NFL
is, do you
wants.
think they could take longer than expected and we not have an answer before the season starts?
I would highly doubt that. Now, in a case like Adrian Peterson's, I could see a longer wait. It is, on the surface, it feels like a much, much, much more complicated case. Now, with AP, he was also placed on the commissioner's exempt list. Being on the commissioner's exempt list, you're already quasi-suspended at that point. So,
but you're getting paid.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
So I believe Adrian Peterson paid a really large fine and then he came back, but he was not suspended longer because he already missed games, but he didn't miss game checks. So I think they suspended him like 6 or fined him like 6 game checks, and then they called it a day. So I think it's really interesting from that perspective how they go about it. It's probably going to take them about a week. That'd be my guess. It's not a super complicated case in comparison to like Adrian Peterson's. And by the time, like with AP, they kind of maneuvered around, like AP could have potentially came back at the end of that 2014 season. He didn't. And by the time like everything was done, well, then then you had months until the 2015 season, and you can take your time. This is a little different. I think the Vikings want to know if and when he's going to be suspended. Other teams will want to know if and when he's going to be suspended. And with that in mind, I would guess sooner rather than later. If they didn't have an answer by the first preseason game, I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised, Dave.
What did you think of when you heard wet reckless?
It's a weird verbiage for the actual quote unquote crime, but it makes sense. It's reckless driving with alcohol involved, and wet in legal terms is alcohol. So I didn't really have a.
Yeah, but he's not being reckless when he's parked.
No, but
getting to that position, I understand. Now, what I thought of that when I first heard of it was women drinking tequila.
Oh, I got you. What is this? A 2007 pay-per-view special, Dave?
Yeah. I just have a friend that loves her tequila.
Fun fact, my wife's aunt and uncle own a bar in South Padre Island called Tequila Sunset, right on the Gulf. It's a really, really cool spot. If you're ever in South Padre, high recommend going there. Tequila Sunset. Got a sick patio, and it's like colorful. Like, it's just not like basic like wood patio kind of vibes. No, it's like painted red and yellow and that kind of stuff. It rips. Yeah, so that's going to be the next step for Jordan Addison, and we'll kind of find that out in time. Meanwhile, Dave, it's time to talk some defense. And I'm very intrigued by this unit. We had a long conversation, as I have one tiny little baby hair that's like this long that's coming down off my forehead, and it's driving me nuts. It's going to be very interesting to see what Brian Flores does with this unit. And we talked extensively about Dallas Turner. I'm intrigued what they're going to do with some of the defensive line stuff, if they're going to utilize Hargrave and Allen a lot on third downs, if they're going to do a lot of rotation. What happens to the NASCAR package? Is that just kaput, other than like very situationally because of what their personnel is? Because remember, they got rid of Bengal Hawk after 1 year. The NASCAR package they could theoretically get rid of after 1 year, because now they have 2 pass rushing defensive tackles that they can rely on, theoretically, of course. So what does that look like? And the second level, are we going to see an expanded role for Ivan Pace Jr.? Are we going to see maybe a diminished role? Is Blake Cashman maybe going to see a little bit of a diminished role in that? Hey, let's not play you near 100% of snaps every game. Let's take you out for like 5 or 6 more per game. Give you a little bit of a breather. Will we see more 3 safety looks? And that was a commonplace over the last 2 years, but is that going to devolve this year? And we're going to see more base stuff. Who's going to play a corner? And I think these questions are so interesting because we genuinely just don't know what it's going to look like. And I think that's part of the mystery with Brian Flores. I think when we talk after the game against Cincinnati Bengals, we're going to have a good sense of what Brian Flores wants to do. And with that sense is going to help us project forward. And as I have Odie down here chewing a bone, just ripped ass so hard. Oh, buddy.
Speaking of which, we've gotten a couple questions on special teams. Are we going to do special teams next Monday? Can you pull yourself up enough to do a special teams deep dive?
Look, I can't do a half hour to an hour on special teams. No, but we can do a little bit of discussion on special teams. Yeah, special teams is pretty cut and dry. Andrew DePaula, and I'm currently ranking all 91 players on A to Z Sports. I've gotten through, I've gotten up to player 55, so the next batch is going to come out probably tomorrow. And I think what's really interesting about what do you call it? Like kind of those rankings is I have Andrew DePaula incredibly high. Why? Mm-hmm. 2-time first team All-Pro, sandwiched with a second team All-Pro. All of those in the last 3 years. DePaula is very good. Will Reichard showed some flashes as a kicker last year. We'll see. Kickers are volatile.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's going to continue to be really good. We don't know if he's going to be really bad. Kickers are weird, man. That's just the way it is. And then Ryan Wright,
as Vikings fans, yes,
they're extra weird in this state, let me tell you. And then you have Ryan Wright, who's signed a $1.75 million contract. I believe $1 million of it is guaranteed. He's nowhere near a guarantee to be the punter on this roster. If Oscar Chapman just all of a sudden looks great, Ryan Wright's probably gone. Like, he does not have a stranglehold on this job. So from that aspect, I think special teams is interesting. And then punt return. Everybody keeps talking about Silas Bolden. I don't buy it. He's 5'9", 160 pounds. He's actually shorter than 5'9". He is tiny. And when you're that tiny, you better be fast and quick. And he's not. You can return punts in college when the guys playing special teams are like the best player at a 3A school in Texas. But you're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. And I'm surprised that we're seeing so much hype from like some of the beat guys. Like, oh, this guy's really good. I'm like, he's so small and his film wasn't that great. I don't buy it. I think Dominic Fleming, the Tulane wide receiver, he's like 5'11", like 185 pounds. He's got punt return ability. I wonder if he gets a chance. Maybe Isaiah Rodgers. There's been rumors of him getting in on the return game. I think what they do at return is going to be really interesting, especially because kick return looks like a more important position as we continue to move forward. Kene Wong would be nice to have, but he wasn't returning that much. Oh my goodness.
And for the punt returns, they want to get above at least average, and they didn't even get that last year. So
yeah,
we're looking for a Marcus Sherrills type. And whether Silas can be that person, I don't know.
So
I went to
go ahead.
Football camp run by a kicker, Steve Schubert, back in the day, before he ended his career chopping off fingers in a snowblower. He played for the Bears, and the dude was small, but he could run like a gazelle. And he was a great kick returner, kick and punt, both. And it was just like, well, you gotta be able to do that. And I love the one dislike thumbs down we get every show. Whoever does it, we appreciate it because you get interaction with the show.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to credit that to my sister-in-law, Eliza, who turns 30 today. Shout out to you. Happy birthday, even though I know you'll never see this. But yeah, hey, what's always funny to me is like you'll get people in the comments just hating or they'll do a thumbs down. You're still responding to the algorithm, buddy. The best thing to do if you hate us is just ignore us. So we'll take it. We'll take it. Yeah, the returning jobs I find really interesting. I also find it interesting the Vikings don't have a kicker competition. They have 91 spots on the roster, and you figure they would
drafted
dedicate
him
one
last
of them.
year.
So
they're going to stick with the draft pick.
Well, it's kicker. It's always good to give him rest for the leg during camp, and you never know if you're going to find a better one. Like we talked about, kickers are weird. They're very weird. So I found that really interesting when it came to the roster itself. But you know what? If Riker kicks like he did last year, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So let's get into this defense. I think where I'm going to be really the most intrigued is on that defensive line, Dave. The defensive,
may be right. It may be a rival that comes in and punches it.
Punches what?
The thumbs down.
That could be. I don't care. They're still helping the algorithm, baby.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really interesting is how this defensive line is going to be constructed. We know for a fact that barring injury, it's going to be Harrison Smith, Jonathan Allen, Javon, Hargrave as your top three guys. I would guess Jalen Redmond is number 4 based on his performance last year. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is probably number 5 based on who's going to get a roster spot. I think Dawkins would have to have just an atrocious camp, like unplayable kind of camp. And based on his film at Georgia and his athletic profile, I don't think that happens. So I think he's going to end up number 5. And then who's going to be number 6 if they carry number 6? They did last year. Taki Taimani and Jalen Redmond both played well enough where it's like, okay, we have to roster these guys. And then Levi Drake Rodriguez was the stash. So does Taki Taimani make it again? Does Levi Drake Rodriguez take a step forward, which I think he needs to show something in camp because he played 7 snaps last year and didn't really show a lot in those 7 snaps, but showed a lot in the preseason, like flashes of potential. Is that potential going to manifest itself? I think that's going to be a very important element here. If it doesn't, like I know he's a fan favorite. He was Prospect X by Kalen Kaler, who writes about draft prospect who's just been overlooked, which it's easy to overlook a guy at Texas A&M Commerce. But just because he's a fan favorite does not mean that's good enough to keep you around. So what will he do to keep himself around? I think he's got to show that he can be like a nose tackle rotational guy and have a little bit of juice rushing the passer. I think that's what it's going to take because Redmond was really good last year and earned a starting job. He only played 236 snaps, but he earned a starting job. That's a big deal. So you take that and what the Vikings have, because I think Hargrave is probably going to end up being a rotational guy. I think he ends up with about 500 or 600 snaps. And Allen, I think, is going to end up with more like 700. He's going to play a lot more base downs than what Hargrave will. Grandizer got the thumbs down because I didn't get enough sleep. Yeah, I should probably go to bed earlier, but I just don't.
You're too busy writing articles for A to Z Sports.
It's true. But I also could be a little bit more efficient with my time during the day. And that's part of it.
When you got 2 beautiful dogs to play with and a lovely bride, we can understand.
Well, she's not home. She's in Yellowstone. Because my sister-in-law's 30th birthday today. It was initially supposed to be a girls' trip And then once I finalized my PTO, then it evolved into an everybody trip. So I am the only one of the family that's not going, which is like kind of sucks, but everybody's understanding because like it was supposed to be a girls' trip. But yeah, I think the defensive line is going to be interesting. I want to see the role Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is going to play. I think he can do some edge stuff, but he's not a bendy kind of edge. He is a bull rush, run you over kind of edge. And that style, I think, could work really well when it comes to rundowns, like a first and second down edge rusher. Hey, Van Ginkel, we're going to take you off the field on some first and second downs. We're going to play Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, and we're going to have that bulky, strong edge setter. I think that's a role he can play, but then I think you move him inside on those pass rush downs, and I'm curious how much issue he's going to have with NFL strength. When you are only 275 pounds and you play on the interior, there is going to be a weakness in the strength profile more often than not compared to offensive linemen who on the inside are going to weigh like a minimum of 300 pounds and likely way closer to 330. So how are you going to be able to win those battles? How long is it going to take you to adapt and adjust against those kind of players? And yeah, if they give a dislike because they're jealous of these locks grandizer, that is up to them. They can like and subscribe, and maybe if we get enough subscribers, then maybe I'll cut it. Who knows? But how the defensive line is structured is going to be interesting. But they got a lot of undersized defensive linemen this year, Dave. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins drafted 275 pounds. Tyler Batty, undrafted free agent, 275 pounds. Elijah Williams, undrafted free agent. He's a defensive tackle. Like, that's what he played at Morgan State. 273 pounds. So why are they targeting these guys who are smaller? What's the reason? Now, Batty is a traditional edge rusher. That's what he played, but he did some like tight fronts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not really sure what their role for him is, but he's got a strength profile to be able to handle like blockers and be able to hold himself up at the point of attack, which was really impressive. And I think one of the reasons why he'll probably end up making this team. So I find it interesting when they're trying to do something like add guys who are lighter. So what's the thought process behind it? And I think answering that question is one I don't have. But answering it is going to be really interesting in itself because there is a why behind it. What is that why? Why does Brian Flores want these tweeners? Why does he want undersized from a weight perspective? Because remember, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is like 6'5.5". He's got long arms. So it's not from that perspective. Why? I'm intrigued. You have my attention. I just don't know what it means.
I believe it's going to be what is going to be known as the waves defense. He's going to send waves of rushers after opposing and that involves defensive linemen.
Are you talking like he's going to have hockey lines and just rotate guys in and out like that?
Sort of. It's going to be a little bit more specific per play than just hockey lines, yes. But the idea is similar, where you keep guys fresh. But it's going to be play and down and distance and all that sort of stuff specific. But I think in different situations, he's going to have put in different people. Now, he had a blitz rate of 38.6% last year.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. And does he keep that blitz rate that high, or does it decrease because suddenly we've got pressure from the inside?
I don't know. It's a good question. I really want to see somebody who has blitz rates broken down by how many players you send, because I personally don't think he's blitzing when he sends 5.
Right, but it's
not. Yeah. But that's the thing though, right? We don't have a metric that breaks down, or at least if there is one, please forward it to me because I want to use it. How many they're sending. If when Brian Flores sends 6, it's for sure a blitz. When he sends 5, it is not a guaranteed that it's a blitz. Because from my perspective, 5 rushers just means his base package. That's what he likes. He likes to send 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with just sending 5. But it's understanding and trying to what's the right word? I don't know what the right word is.
Well, I think if you take the waves, they may call it a blitz because it has more, it's different. It's not a base defense, but it's going to be a whole bunch of, like Doug says, different looks. He's got the ability now this year to have more different looks than he did last year. Last year, to get extra pressure, he moved into NASCAR, bringing the edges in, adding a third edge, which I fully expect to happen this year. I expect to see Dallas Turner more playing time and more snaps. Now, combine that with blitzes from linebackers if they are blitzing, i.e. Ivan Pace, or more different O-linemen that are rotating in and out. Now, most of the blitzing, or I shouldn't say blitzing, most pass rush pressure are going to be Allen and Hargrave. But expect others to get involved in that too, especially against the run. But it's the whole waves idea, I think, is to keep quarterbacks and centers and offensive coordinators guessing and to keep the defense fresh.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'd do it.
I think that's an interesting idea. I think there's going to be more rotation this year than there has been before because I think Brian Flores can trust more players than he has before. We don't really give enough credence to the idea that the last couple of years were still rebuild years. Like the last 3 years, they were trying to win, but they were rebuilding. They were making calculated decisions to absorb dead money on the salary cap and move on from players and be really strategic with how they brought talent in because they were trying to beef up for this window that they're now entering. And because of that, I think they kind of looked at Flores and be like, hey, we trust you. Do what you can. We're going to get you talent. And then they did. They've been focusing on like a position group a year. Last year, they fixed edge. Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner. Theoretically, you now are 4 deep at edge for 4 years. That was kind of the idea. This year, defensive tackle. Now, it's only a 2 and 3 year deal for guys who are a little bit older, but with defensive tackles, you kind of got to take risks with older guys because young guys do not hit the market. They just don't. Which is why I was almost on board with the idea of taking a defensive tackle at what pick did they have? 24? 24. For the sole fact that you got to draft them to have them, or you got to get lucky. Guys like Linval Joseph don't hit the market anymore. They get signed quick. So I think next year is going to end up being cornerback. They're going to put a lot of resources in a corner. They're going to draft one high. But corner's such an interesting position because you don't need to be great. You just need to be good. It is a weak link system. So if you have one link that's just atrocious, like Waswa Sirwanga, if Waswa Sirwanga is just terrible, well, then they're just going to bully him. But if you have 3 corners who are all solid, like the 2021 Bengals, I keep bringing them up because none of their corners were great. None of them corners were bad. They were all fine to very good. They couldn't just pick on somebody. until the final drive of the Super Bowl when Eli Apple got exposed by Cooper Kupp. But that was it. So I think corner is the one spot where you can take those kind of chances. Now, how they're taking those chances is interesting because last year they had an idea. Mekhi Blackman's coming in the second year. He was good for us. Andrew Booth, maybe we can still get something out of him. Spoiler, they didn't. And the third guy was Kyrie Jackson, and he tragically passed away. And then a couple weeks later, Mekhi Blackman tears his ACL in the first practice. So all of a sudden, your entire strategy of, hey, we're going to have this youth movement at corner. We have these young, high upside athletes. That's gone. So they already had Shaq Griffin. He was last year's Jeff Okuda. And then they're like, okay, we need to go get Stephon Gilmore. This just isn't working. And they did. And you know what? It worked. Now, did it work fully? No, there were flaws, and they got exposed at times because they were older and they just did not have the juice that they once did. But for the most part, during the year, they were solid. And having solid players at that position is more important than having an elite one. I think the Vikings have a top corner in Byron Murphy Jr. It's also very interesting in the fact that he is interchangeable between the slot and the outside. And nickel packages, they move him inside. I think that's pretty cool because it gives you that versatility. And quite frankly, on like a third down situation, I'd rather have one of my better corners in the slot than I would on the outside because those two-way goes can be lethal, especially like a 3rd and 5 and you got a choice route where they're stemming at 6 yards. That corner can be vital in preventing that. So I like that Murphy has that flexibility. But they
on top of that, he's one of the major communicators on the defense.
Oh, yeah. He is absolutely one of the major communicators. And what they've done at cornerback now, Dave, is they have targeted speed and quickness. Isaiah Rodgers is 5'10", 175 pounds, not big. But he's got patience, quickness, speed, and the ability to click and close and eliminate space in a very fast manner. So
then we got Okuda and Blackman, which if Blackman comes out healthy, that's going to be a competition. And then we got McGlothern.
Yeah. And Zamiah Vaughn, don't sleep on him. So Vaughn used to be a quarterback. He's 6'3", 180 pounds. He's got good length. He's got really good quickness. He's got really good speed. But he's got a lot of work to do with technique. But that's the kind of guy, okay, he's not drafted. Let's just get him in the building and see if we can work with him. Because if you have that little experience at a position, even if you're older, because I think he's 23, you have untapped potential more so than somebody else at your age because you have such little experience at the position. Like Brian O'Neill only played 2 years at left tackle at Pitt before being drafted by the Vikings. That's not that many. We're thinking, oh, this guy's a project. We all thought it, myself included. But what did he do? Game 2, Rashad Hill gets hurt. He goes in, and he doesn't look back. He hasn't given up that starting job since. Only when he had injuries was he not the guy. And he's been the most solid player on this roster for the better part of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. It's pretty remarkable. But those stories don't always happen. So guys who do position changes late can often go undrafted. And when they do go undrafted, well, they get opportunities. So Grandizer says they just have to be good enough until it gets exposed. Kind of, yeah. I mean that it's a simplistic argument, but one of the tough parts about the Vikings right now under Brian Flores is they have been good enough and then they get exposed and then they don't have the horses to fix it. So will they have the horses to fix whatever gets exposed this year? Look, defense is weird. Every defense gets exposed. Every single one. The Tony Dungy Tampa 2, massively exposed. Nobody runs Tampa 2 solely anymore. Tampa 2 is a vital part of a coverage plan. But nobody runs the Tampa 2 defense anymore. The 46, nobody runs the 46. The Baltimore Ravens Marvin Lewis defense, nobody runs that. Defense is the one thing that constantly evolves. because there's always something or someone who figures it out, exposes it, and then everybody copies you. They copy you until you get exposed. So
that's why Brian Flores tries to stay on top of the trends and dictates what the offense does. It's that tit for tat deal. Offense does one thing and the defense has to defeat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Defense does one thing and the offense has to defeat it.
What's going to be really interesting here, though, is when you take a look at Brian Flores, is he always gets exposed by like week 13. How are you going to evolve from there? And how is he going to take that next step with this unit? Do they have the horses to now have a counter or two in the chamber where they didn't feel like they did the previous 2 years? I think that's going to be my biggest thing I'm going to look for. When they get solved, per se, because they will. If it's not this year, it'll be early next. When they get solved, how is that counter going to happen? It's just like in boxing. When they figure out that you're gonna jab a few times with the left, and then you're gonna come with the right cross and then left uppercut. Okay. So when they block that cross, they know that they can just come in and get you with an uppercut. Well, then how are you gonna block it? You can just go right at them and get a jab. So when they figure that out, okay, well, now I can't use that combination anymore. What am I going to do to get you down? And does Brian Flores have that in him with this position group? I don't know. I trust Brian Flores to have ideas, but does he have ideas that his defense can handle? And a lot of it's going to come down to, are they going to stay healthy? And what does cornerback look like at the end of the year? Does Mekhi Blackmon look like a starter? Does Isaiah Rodgers look like a starter? Is Jeff Okudah playing because he's healthy? A lot of questions at the corner group, but there is some real intrigue with what they can potentially provide.
More 3 safeties.
I think they are. That's the vibe I get, is they're going to play a lot of 3 safety looks. Is that the right play? We'll see. We'll see what Theo Jackson brings, but during training camp, Theo Jackson looked like a starter. They've been talking about him like he's a starter. I think last year they just had 4 starters at safety on defense, and they just couldn't play him. And they didn't want to take guys off of the field to play him. So I think Theo Jackson was robbed of playing time in a similar way to Dallas Turner. Sorry, dude, there's just no path for you to play. And you know what? Sometimes that happens. It is what it is. It's okay.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to see. Now, I've done up a list of questions.
Okay.
We've covered most of them. Like, how much flexibility does the Flores scheme allow for adjusting to specific opponents' offenses versus forcing teams to adjust to the Vikings?
I think that they do a really good job of adjusting on a week-to-week basis as far as what the game plan looks like. My biggest questions are, when a core piece of your defense gets solved, how can Brian Flores adapt it with what he has? And has his failure to adapt been because of the personnel, or is it because Flores just had nothing? I'm leaning toward the former over the latter there. I think he was just personnel limited, and he didn't feel like he could, the things he really wanted to do, he had the horses to do, which can be even worse than be running an exposed defense, because if you don't have the horses to do it, you're setting your guys up to fail. And that is not something a good coach does. You don't set up your talent to fail. So
that also includes not just the bodies for talent, but also the smarts. He demands his players be extremely smart and know multiple positions in situations.
Mm-hmm. It's a really, really interesting question. I think Flores has more horses now than he ever has. And I wouldn't rule out adding another cornerback, but I don't think it happens before August 1st. I think they're going to give them some time during training camp. see what happens, and then they'll make the move. And if it's an older veteran like Gilmore, it'll be after training camp breaks, like after the second preseason game is when they'll add that guy.
The team had 33 turnovers last year. Is that a realistic goal, or what is the realistic goal for 2025?
I think 25. 1.5 turnovers forced a game, I think, is a realistic number that you can expect them to achieve. Now, I don't think the Vikings had a lot of fluke turnovers last year. Some turnovers are luck, where, oh my gosh, the receiver dropped the ball, it hits him in the shoulder pad, and it just landed in my arms. A lot of the turnovers the Vikings had were earned. They jumped passes, like the Andrew Van Ginkel pick sixes, strip sacks. It's how the turnovers happen versus getting them in itself. Because some of them are just luck-based. Some of them are, hey, I was skilled enough to go do it. And if you are skilled enough to go do it, if you force 5 turnovers for like 3 or 4 straight years, I can probably predict you to force 5 turnovers the following year too, because you've been consistent. But even some of that can be viewed as random as well. I think about 25 turnovers is a good mark right now. But if it's more, I wouldn't be surprised. If it's slightly less, I think I would be. Like if they just force 20, I'm like, oh man, that's not that good. Like this defense is better than that. That would be the territory we'd be in there. So
Grandizer asked, does Flores have the talent to adjust to what he wants to do? Like you said, next year is the year they draft for a corner, top corner.
I think next year's the year they draft corner. I think Flores has enough talent to adjust, but does he think that? And what does he want to do? Because I think a lot of this would be solved, Dave, by if they just played straight man coverage. If they could do that, that solves a lot of things for Flores. If you can man up and play single coverage, that makes your job so easy. Vikings really can't do that yet. So I think that's a big thing too.
With all the names we've discussed, who haven't we discussed, or who might be the dark horse come out of nowhere on the defensive side and shock fans?
No, it's Isaiah Rodgers. It's 100% Isaiah Rodgers. I know Flores and O'Connell have hyped him up. When I got my hands on the film, because I thought it was a weird signing at first too, I watched him like, oh, this guy's a Flores player. I get it. I get it completely. And I think he'll be good. He's got quickness. He's got speed. And he's got really good ball skills. And what I really like is patience. There's a blaze route ran by Jerry Jeudy. So the blaze is like you're running a route and at the stem, you take like 3 steps like you're running a post, and then you drop your hips and you run an out route. So the whole idea is they want you to flip your hips and sell out like you're covering the post. So then when they stop, they can cut behind you and create yards of separation. That's the idea. What really impressed me about Rodgers was he stayed on the backside hip, so like in a trail position. But then when Jeudy started to slow down, he just kind of took 2 steps, flipped his hips, and then kept following him. So he didn't get baited by it. And I think that patience was what really won me over for the idea of what he can be. Because if you're patient, you can do a lot of really good things. Patience is huge at corner. Because there are a lot of guys who are fast, a lot of guys who are quick, a lot of guys who have long arms. But if you can just wait until they make the first move and then react in a quick and decisive way, that's what will separate a good from a great corner.
Jaden says, this next year, the year they take the safety, he would love to have Coy in purple.
Coy will not be eligible till the 2027 NFL draft.
Yep.
And at this rate, he probably goes top 10.
Which is great. And hopefully the Vikings grab him, because that's where he wants to go. There's and maybe Harrison Smith will have retired just before then.
Mm-hmm. Who knows with Harrison Smith? I thought he would have retired 2 years ago, and he's still playing.
Yep. Can Tyler Batty make it onto the final 53?
I think he will. I think he takes Gabe Murphy's spot. He's just got such a high floor, and he's an effort pass rusher, so he's never going to be like this elite pass rusher, but I think he's a really good base down player. He's got great size, 6'5.5", 275, and he's strong as an ox. Like, that is a base down run defender, and I think you could kick him inside and get a little pass rush juice on, like, third downs. Like, that's why I'm really intrigued by these 270, 275-pound guys that they're bringing in this year. What's the idea?
Okay. Grandizer asked, which do we see as, let's see, defensive position battle competitions? Which is the biggest this year? Or do we see it as a whole intense battle?
Every cornerback spot outside of CB1. Byron Murphy's Jr.'s job is safe. Who's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and if they keep a sixth? And who's going to make the roster? Who's going to leave? Like, the Vikings signed Jeff Okudah to a 1-year deal, $2.3 million. It's fully guaranteed. He's getting all that money. So I don't think they cut him. But if they do and somebody signs him to the vet minimum, I bet there's offset language where they'll only lose out on the signing bonus. It was like 1.1 or 1.2 million. So the way I look at it, I think all those cornerback spots are going to be the positions that we focus on. What about Isaiah Rodgers? Is he going to prove he's good enough? Is Mekhi Blackman fully back from that torn ACL? Now, remember, it's been a year. He tore it about a year ago. That first training camp practice was when he tore the ACL. So I think that's a really big positive that you have guys that can earn those spots, but it also stinks that you have to have guys earn those spots, but you can't have a perfect roster. I think there's one spot where you have questions. They're not destitute at corner. They just have questions at corner. I'm okay with it being at corner.
Now, I agree with the corner, but I also am looking forward to the linebacker, backup linebackers spots, how the linebackers are going to fit in. Eric Wilson, we know, is a backup. He'll play most of the time probably on special teams. But Kobe Bryant, how's he going to work his way in? Does Ivan Pace, does he take a step in his pass coverage?
Mm-hmm.
All that sort of stuff.
I think Kobe King is going to just be a special teams guy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think he's got some potential to be like a thumper on rundowns, but he's a 5th round or 6th round pick. I'm not expecting that from him. I'm not. And you know what? That's okay.
Grandizer asked, do we have a darling to make the 53 that we're rooting for?
I do. Elijah Williams, defensive tackle, Morgan State. 3 things about him. 1, at the FCS level, he played in HBCU, which is also at the FCS level. He had 33 sacks in 4 years. Very productive. How much of that production translate? Could translate a little bit. Could translate 0%. You don't know because you're jumping up a lot of levels. But he has a built-in mentor in Javon Hargrave, who also came from an HBCU, albeit weighed about 35 pounds more, and was a 3rd-round draft pick of the Steelers. But understanding that transition, something that's worth noting. 2, he was a rookie mini camp signing. He got just an invite to rookie mini camp, showed out so much they gave him a contract. Those guys are 4 times more likely to make the roster than guys who were just signed as normal UDFAs. And 3, defensive tackle, there are spots to win. You better perform really well, but there are spots to win. So that is my dark horse to make the roster. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy, personally.
Okay. Now let's go to edge. Grenard had a 15.9% pressure rate, and Van Ginkel had a 12.6. Both outstanding numbers. Of those two, who improves?
Grenard.
And then throw in Dallas Turner And what do you think his pressure rate's going to be this year?
Grenard's the best pass rusher on this team. And I don't think it's very close. Van Ginkel is a very good pass rusher, but his value is the versatility. Grenard's the best pass rusher on this team. I'm going to be very interested to see how they choose to pass rush. Flores loved running stunts last year, but he found that quarterbacks who could get the ball out real quick, stunts don't work because guess what, Dave? They take time. And that was one of the big reasons why they struggled so much against the Rams and the Lions is because they knew how to take care of stunts. So I think it's going to be interesting from that standpoint. But yeah, Grenard's the best pass rusher on this team. It might be Turner in time, but he's got a ways to go.
Gotcha. Last question that I have is if the defense reaches its full potential, and I love every time I think of this, the car insurance commercial with the Pinocchio talking about potential. Where would you rank it among the NFL elite units? And what would be its signature strength?
Pass rush is going to be the signature strength. I think it's a top 5 defense right now.
Right, but we're talking elite units. We're talking 85 Bears. We're talking
oh no,
Ravens, all that sort of stuff.
Not in the conversation.
Even if they max everything out?
I wouldn't even put the 2017 Vikings in that conversation. That was a great defense, but you're talking like historically great.
Historically, and yeah. Hold teams to 10 points or less. Great.
Yeah, this team won't be that. Like the 2017 defense was so good on third downs. Like they were the best team ever on third downs. Really good, but I wouldn't put them in the same classification as the 2002 Bucs, the 85 Bears. Like I don't think this team has that in them, and that's not an insult. That is winning the Olympic gold medal in the 100 meters. It's you are the fastest person in the world kind of territory. And I don't think that this defense is that, but I do think they could challenge for being the best defense of this calendar year.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah. All right. That is our show. I have yawned, I think 4 or 5 times so far. I'm just wiped out, but I think this was a good show. I think it was a lot of fun. Make sure you
appreciate everybody in the chat, especially those giving us questions.
Absolutely. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. We're going to be back Monday, and we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to be talking about training camp finally beginning. Oh, thank God. I am so excited. And on top of that, we got a lot more coming. But programming note, Saturday will be 2 bloggers this week because Darren decided that softball was more important than Vikings. How dare him?
He's getting me the notes tonight, folks. He's getting me the notes. So we'll go Saturday at 4 Central.
We'll see if he actually gets you the notes. I'm just kidding. But yeah, we'll be back Monday night. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!